such a beautiful story, such a wonderful story. It's the final piece of our Christmas story. Our kings have finally arrived in the manger. They say that this may have happened as much as 2 years after the birth of Jesus. In the video that you may see going on above later in the service, you'll see that Mary carries out a relatively large child, not an infant, but more like a toddler. This story of the kings, the Gentile kings, coming to see this baby, a Jew, born to Jewish parents, was an epiphany. And you learn later, too, that the word epiphany means something like a revelation, an unveiling, a wonderful event. And you know that if you've ever used that term in your own life. An epiphany. I've had an idea. I've had an epiphany. I've had a realization. But this was when Jesus revealed himself. God revealed God's self to us, to the Gentiles, to the people other than the Jews, the religious people who were expecting their Savior. So Jesus was for all of us, for the whole world, and still is. And what's especially wonderful about this realization is the piece in the story that Benny just read, when Herod had told those wise men to come back and tell him where this child was, because he was jealous of this child and wanted to kill him. And so the wise men decided to return home by another way. Home by another way. That's a really important piece of Jesus' story, because Jesus didn't come to confirm everything that everybody had always believed. He was very different. He was born a baby in a manger. He was born a baby, not the most powerful person ever to be seen, but an infant. And not in a beautiful palace, but in a place where cows and donkeys and pigs took their food. Not to wealthy parents, not to ruling parents, but to humble parents, a carpenter and a young maiden. And throughout his life, Jesus was doing the same sort of thing. He was completely countercultural, completely counter-religious. He was always coming up against the scribes and the Pharisees. He was always doing something that we didn't expect him to be doing. I wonder if nowadays, if Jesus were to come, he wouldn't be one of those beautiful pictures that we have in our hearts and our heads of Jesus, but whether he'd be someone who'd be really challenging us to do the right thing. And showing us that doing the right thing isn't what we necessarily think the right thing is to do. He would be challenging us over and over again to go home by another way, to do things in a different way, to see things in a new way. And so the Discovering Possibilities part of what we're going to do today begins with a story about the Barnes & Noble bookstore chain. You may have heard that some of them have been closing their stores. Borders is completely closed. But books are wonderful. I don't know about you, but books are wonderful, and that's a hard lesson to learn, that bookstores are closing their doors. But like Blockbusters and Movie Gallery, the chains of movie distributors that have closed now, this bookstore is struggling. And for the same reason, they forgot what business they're in. Barnes & Noble thought they were in the business of having stores where people could drop by, sip coffee or chai, browse around and buy a book or two. But along came Amazon.com, and you can browse online. They'll send books to your doorstep, even by a drone, I hear. And increasingly younger generations aren't interested in buying printed books because they have e-readers, and they can carry a suitcase full of book in one little device. They are downloading electronic files. There are even schools, including Brattleboro Union High School, where the freshman class this year was given Chromebooks with all their textbooks loaded on to the computer, so that all year, all next year, all through their high school career, they will use that computer to write their papers and to read their books and to do their homework. Barnes & Noble thought they were in the business of providing places for people to buy printed books, instead of the business of providing people with ways they could read written material. People moved on. Barnes & Noble stayed put. So now Barnes & Noble is scrambling to think not only how they do business, but what business is it they're in. Sadly, churches can be like Barnes & Noble stores, still trying to do what they did very successfully 20, 30, even 40 years ago, and in much the same way, only to be surprised when younger generations aren't buying it. It isn't that younger generations aren't yearning and searching for spiritual answers. They are, maybe now more than ever, maybe now more than at any other point in our lifetimes. But they aren't convinced that churches have the spiritual answers that they're looking for, and so they're looking elsewhere. Did you know that in 1940 the average age of a United Methodist was 30 years old? And in 2000, the average age of a United Methodist was 60 years old? Christian congregations are reaching increasingly fewer people for Christ with each passing generation. You don't have to be a statistician to see where this trend is taking us. On any given Sunday in America, only about 17% of people go to church. In many areas, it's significantly less than that. Like Barnes & Noble stores, have congregations forgotten our business? Have we thought that being a church means doing what we've always done in the way those of us still involved recall and know how to do and find it comforting? Is maintenance really our mission? Jesus said, "Go and make disciples, baptize them and teach them to obey what I have taught you." In other words, Jesus sent us out to make more and better disciples. Jesus also said that people in our communities will know that we are his apprentices by the love we demonstrate toward others. He even said that as we treat persons in need, the hungry, the sick, the least, last, lost, and left out, so we are treating him. We can't follow Jesus and not care about the people he cares about. Making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world, that's how United Methodists express our mission. Making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. That's our business. That's what we are called to be, and to be effectively. So here's some good news. There are scores of congregations across our conference, congregations in every district who are doing amazingly effective ministry in creative and surprisingly new ways that are connecting with the people in their community. They are changing people's lives for Christ and having a kingdom impact in their communities. They are the Amazon.com of congregations. They aren't all big or wealthy, but they are all passionately committed to doing whatever it takes to be faithful to and fruitful in the mission to which Jesus calls, equips, and sends every congregation. The Discovering the Possibilities process on which we embark is about looking in the mirror and taking stock. It's also about looking at the community around here and wondering what kind of congregation Christ needs us to become in order to be his hands and feet and voice here. Our hope is that this congregation will be known as one of the Amazon.com congregations, where people are drawn to Christ and being part of his body, where they grow to be more like him and to join him in serving others, to go home by another way, to do things in a new and different way, to listen to where God is leading us, even though it's not comfortable or what we've always known, to go home by another way. Thanks be to God.